And that, kids, is why you never do crack cocaine.
I think we found another. Get ready.
Hello, it's me, Gatsby from Gatskin, and I want to formally apologize for subjecting you all to the Deltarune brain rot I had there for a bit. Anyways, let's get back to ponies. That's right, this is a sequel video to my first reimagining, redesigning AU thing of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic that I am still jokingly calling Friendship is Gatskin. If you haven't seen that first video yet, maybe go do that. That would probably be a good idea, but you do what you want. I'm not your parental unit. Let's stop beating around the horse here and just get into the art. Or at least that is what I would say, because while I was editing this video, news started to come out that on July 24th at the San Diego Comic-Con, there is going to be a panel about My Little Pony and what's ahead in Equestria. Lauren Faust is leading this panel, and I'm so nervous and so excited because, yay, Lauren Faust is involved! But I'm really scared that this will just be My Little Pony Generation 4 2.0, kind of like how they did with like regular show and like the Lost tapes, where they're just gonna like announce, oh, we're doing Generation 4 again. And I love Generation 4. I love it a lot, but I'm really hoping for instead that this is going to be a Generation 6 announcement with new characters, or at the very least a new timeline, new continuity where they can do like different stuff. As long as it doesn't have AI involved, I'll be happy. I'm just so scared. I'm so nervous. So, you know, discuss in the comments below. Hopefully I can get this video out before the 24th, what you think might happen. And if you are in the future and it's after the news has dropped, you know, you can talk about that too. Anyways, tangent over, now we can get to the art. So, in this video, I will mainly be drawing my own takes on the alicorns, you know, Celestia, Luna, all that. But before we get to that fun part, the first thing I want to do is a quick design update on a character from the previous video. My take on Spike for this AU. His name is Mercury. And as some folks rightfully pointed out, his design for that video wasn't that different from the original. I was so focused on making sure all the ponies were unique and cohesive that Mercury fell by the wayside. You can kind of look back in that original video. I really did try to like play with colors and whatnot, but nothing felt right. And without thinking, I just kind of decided to leave it as is. And it really did a disservice to Mercury. So here I am trying to mend that. So the lore for Mercury is pretty much the same from what I mentioned in that video. You know, him being one of the many royal messengers for the two rulers of Equestria, and he has like a parental relationship with Luna. What I like to think happened is that Luna adopted Mercury as an egg. Maybe she has a friend who's a dragon, and her dragon friend was like, hey, you know, we have this egg here in the Dragonlands that no one is really able to take care of at the moment. Could you do me a solid and raise this little one for me? And it ended up being like a win-win for everybody, because one thing, you know, an orphaned child gets to have a loving home. Luna, you know, she's always wanted to have a kid, raise a kid, but, you know, her being a quasi-immortal, you know, powerful being makes that a little difficult. I mean, who wants to bury their own kids, even if they live a full, happy life? That'd be kind of awkward for her. But a dragon, you know, dragons live a very long time. They don't age that much. So yeah, it just worked out for everybody. Mercury ends up being kind of like an ambassador almost, or at the very least, a bridge of positive relationships between like the ponies and the dragons. Even though he is like raised by Luna and spends a lot of his time with ponies, he still regularly visits and is visited by his fellow dragons. So he's a lot more confident in being a dragon raised by ponies compared to like Canon Spike. Honestly, his choice to be a royal messenger, that was his own idea, baby's first job. And even though he's doing really good for a little baby dragon his age, there definitely was some nepotism going on when he got the job to fill in for the royal party planner for the spring equinox celebration. In this second attempt, originally, and you'll see for most of this drawing, I was going to make him pink with more like silver blue, gray scales, for his like fins and whatnot, because I liked the color combination. But then I got done with it and I sat and thought that it was it just didn't feel right to have a character who was so associated with like the literal moon goddess to be like such a bright color. So I went back and I made his scale color a light silver, way more fitting to how like actual like Mercury the metal looks like. I do admit I feel a little guilty of getting rid of his pink scales. Like the nerves in my brain were really trying to convince me that it was like evil to change his scale color. Like, oh, boys can't be pink? That's really problematic and extremely horrible of you. I hope you go to super mega hell. And to those thoughts, please stop. I'm just trying to make these character designs make sense. And even though he's no longer pink, I still think Mercury, he's still a very soft, sweet little kid who likes more, traditionally feminine things and doesn't really care what other dragons think about that. Speaking of Luna, let's go on to the next pony. Here, the queen of the night herself, Queen Luna. That's right, I decided to make both her and her sister, who we will see in a bit, queens. I don't have to worry about selling toys, and whether or not the term queen is viewed in a more negative light over princesses by little children. So, fun fact, Luna here was actually drawn after her sister. So a lot of the design choices I made for Luna, they were greatly informed by that previous work that we'll see later. A little confusing, but it's all going to work out. And designing my own take of Luna was harder because both of her designs in this show, her original one that we saw in season 1, and then her redesign she got in season 2, those are both like very like iconic designs to me. And the goal of the previous video and this one is not to say, oh, I'm improving, something, I'm making it better. It's just to make my own creative take on, My Little Pony. And even with that, when you have like such like a really solid design, it's like, oh, what can I do that's like different? Especially when you have all these other artists out here who do like these amazing, like their own amazing takes of, that kind of thing. It's like, oh, what can I do that's, good enough to look at? So what I ended up doing was, obviously you can see I definitely pulled a lot more inspiration from her second design in the show from season 2. But her mane, I made a silver color to reflect, the surface of the moon. And also her crown and shoes are like vaguely kind of like Roman, Greekish in fashion, because I wanted them to look a little more quote unquote ancient. In this interpretation, I really do want these to be seen as like these like demigods. So I thought hinting at that through the accessories made sense. So this iteration of Luna never got banished to the moon. So you can imagine she has and continues to have a much more positive relationship to the population of Equestria when it comes to most of them sleeping through the night. She probably did have a bout of jealousy when she was younger, but she was able to have a conversation with her sister, a really productive one, where they were able to help figure out Luna's predicament and, navigate those feelings and turn it into something positive. One thing she started doing is she became kind of like the guardian of all the ponies' like dreams, helping them through their nightmares and stuff like we see, Luna do in the show. Another thing she ended up doing after talking with her sister and getting consent from the ponies involved was to use her magic to make a new subgroup within the ponies, bat ponies who are already like night owls were kind of summoned to the castle and asked, like, hey, do you want to be a bat pony? If not, that's cool. If yes, awesome, here's the new wings and fangs, welcome to the club. I always thought bat ponies were cool. Like that early fanon concept, or at least one that I recall there being, was that the bat ponies were like a group of ponies who were so devoted to Luna and thusly were blessed by her and given like these more bat-like attributes. And that's one reason why I'd also decided to give Luna bat wings. And there's another reason too, I'll talk about later, but I think bat wings on ponies are really cool, and it also kind of gave Luna more a little spooky, a little mysterious, and maybe a little different. Yeah, I don't think every pony in Luna's personal guard would be a bat pony. There probably would be a higher percentage of bat ponies under her like personal service, just because like her, they have a more nocturnal sleeping schedule. Of course, there's still at least a few bat ponies out there who live a civilian life just like any pony else. Midnight smoothie run, anyone. Overall, this iteration of Luna, she's not as socially awkward as canon Luna. She's a very empathetic and calming presence to be around. The ponies of Equestria view her as a symbol of transformation, self-reflection, protection of the mind, emotion, music, poetry, and of course, the beauty and mystery of the night. But just as the moon sets, so too the sun must rise. Here is the next character, Queen Sola. That's right, I decided between the last video and this one, I wanted my iteration of Princess Celestia to have a different name. I went with Sola just because, one, it has a similar mouthfeel to Luna, Sola, Luna. 2, it sounds like solar. And 3, this ended up being a funny coincidence, but I'm rolling with it. In Latin and in some of the Romance languages, I think Spanish specifically, Sola as a word means alone, which I think is very fitting for her character. Not that Sola is really alone. She has her sister, she has her country and all the ponies in it that she loves so dearly. But I think that there is some intrinsic loneliness to Queen Sola's character that she hides underneath her wise and sometimes playful nature. Hashtag Trolla for the win. I think that loneliness comes from the fact that she is a bit older than Luna, so she remembers a lot more of their childhood. Okay, so in my mind, Sola and Luna are naturally born alicorns, and they are the last of their kind. Alicorns, despite them looking like ponies, there's something more akin to monsters, I guess would be the word for it. Think your Tyrex, your Grogars, Discord kind of too. They're beings of magic. And I'm circling back. That's why, one reason why I gave Luna bat wings. And at the end here, you'll see I will give Sola a third eye that she keeps closed most of the time. And if there were other naturally born alicorns out there, they would probably have their own like little various monster-esque traits. It's a lot like how, I forget the term in nature. I guess cancerization would be not like someone getting cancer, but like in nature, when things that aren't crabs evolve into crabs or like crab-like. It's like that. It's like whatever alicorn ancestor, they just coincidentally evolved into being pony-like, if that makes sense. But yes, Alicorn Society had an Atlantis situation, and due to their hubris as a society, it collapsed, and Sola and Luna were left as the only survivors. Sola, like I mentioned previously, she has a lot more memories of those days and the horrors from that, and combined with like some other stuff I imagined, happened to her character, she really carries the weight of responsibility that comes with being an older sibling, and that responsibility has transferred over, but now that she's one of the leaders of a country for like 1,000 years now, she keeps a lot of her troubles to herself. As for her design, I really wanted to make her mane look like a lion's mane, vaguely, because I forget the exacts of it, but I know in alchemy, there's a tie between like suns and lions. And then also with Luna having bat wings, it was a very funny and intentional slight reference to Solgaleo and Lunala from Pokemon. Those games are going to be 10 years old in a few months, by the way. Do you feel old yet? I ended up making her hair color red, yellow, orange, bit more fiery, sun-like. And then I also added bright green for some contrast. And bright green, you know, it's not a color you typically see on a character associated with the sun or fire, so I thought it was something that would help her stand out a little bit in that regard. The ponies of Equestria, I do think that when it comes to Sola, they often associate her with the protection of the body, hospitality, the visual arts, the harvest, wisdom. Sola and Luna, when they were younger, they did not set out to be rulers of Equestria. It's something that happened to them as they both came into their magic and began to protect Equestria from more and more threats. And there are definitely some ethical concerns about having your kingdom eternally ruled by some quasi-immortal beings for 1,000 years, but hey, they make it work. That's all you can ask for. Okay, I've drawn 2 pretty alicorn rulers. Definitely hope there isn't any other alicorn character I'm forgetting about right now. Oh. How can I not draw Princess Miyamore Cadenza? Celestia has always been my favorite of the alicorns and probably one of my favorite ponies. Cadence is a character that I just always liked ever since I saw Canterlot Wedding when it first premiered on the hub. She's nice, she's pretty. I think it's funny when Shining Armor threw her like a football that one time. And when I was in the 8th grade in my computer class during free time, I would play a Flash game based off that one scene while listening to Vocaloid music on my headphones, all while knowing that everyone in my class thought I was a major dweeb, because I was. I still am. Back on subject here, my take on Cadence, or Mia as I'm calling her in this AU, it's not too different. I really wanted a major change to be her hair. I wanted to do something that wasn't just the whimsical, forever flowing hair like Sola and Luna have. Originally, I thought of maybe giving her like Betty Boop-esque like pixie cut, but then the idea hit me of giving her Bantu knots, but have them be in the shape of hearts. And I really liked that idea, so I went with that. But her hair, so I went with that. But then it ended up being like a hybrid style where the front part was the heart-shaped Bantu knots, and then the back of her mane are butterfly locks. Still long and flowing, but I think it's a different enough silhouette from Sola and Luna. Her cutie mark, I changed it a little bit as well. It's still a heart made of crystal, but it's a heart in a crystal. I had a real back and forth on whether or not I wanted her to be an alicorn. I decided to make her an alicorn because one thing I really liked about MLP FIM is Celestia and Luna. They're the sun and the moon. There's duality there. Cadence, she is love. And Twilight, when she becomes an alicorn, she's friendship. You know, there's these parallels within these pairs. And I guess I just implied that in this AU, I guess Starcatcher would eventually become an alicorn at some point. I don't know. Basically, I like the completeness of having 4 alicorns. Something about that just feels right to me. 4 is a nice number. I like the number 4. However, unlike Sola and Luna, who were born alicorns. Mia is an artificial alicorn. She became an alicorn in a very similar fashion to what happened in the canon. Though, unlike the canon, she went from unicorn to alicorn instead of Pegasus to alicorn. Sola and Luna, combined their magic together and transformed her into an alicorn, after showing a great embodiment of her love and care for others. And Sola adopted her as her niece. I like to think Sola has a history of taking a pony who stands out to her in some way and making them like a niece or nephew of hers, like adopting them, almost like knighting someone, but instead it's like, oh, congratulations, you're now a prince or princess, and you're my niece and or nephew. So anytime you see like a prince or princess so-and-so running around Canterlot, it's probably because they did like a neat party trick at like a gala, something I'll do a take on Prince Blueblood in 2047. I also like to think that the magic that turns ponies into bat ponies, if the foundation of that was used to make the spell to turn ponies into alicorns. So Mia, Princess Mia, she's been a royal for about a decade now. She's gotten used to all the diplomatic civil work that goes into that role. She definitely does a lot of stuff with charity and just helping Equestria out in that regard. I think she's very popular because of that. If this AU was a show, Princess Mia and the whole entire Canterlot wedding equivalent story arc, that would be like in season 2, which is far off in the future, because to close out this video, I want to draw one more character, which is a character I mentioned in the last video, but never showed art of. That being the evil sorcerer Twilight, the big bad of this hypothetical season 1 of Friendship is Gatskin. Originally, I was gonna draw her for that first video, but I couldn't come up with anything I liked. Here's the concept art I drew of her, where she's just a knockoff of Nightmare Twilight. So I think it ended up being a really good thing that I waited on her design, because it gave me time to really let my brain juices cook and come up with something better, because I really like what I came up with for this video. So, when I think of evil sorcerers in fiction, my first thought is always of the Lich. Those evil magic users who suck up souls to live forever or whatever. And the idea of that like character archetype combined with a pony, but also using that same color palette from the concept art, those kind of dusty pinks and purples, I thought it would be a very interesting idea juxtaposition. Lich? Scary. Pretty pink pony? Not scary. Combine them? I think it's funny. I was also very inspired by the line of My Little Pony figurines that are the dissected anatomy models. One side is the pony, the other side shows the cartoon skeleton inside. And those were actually a really good help, reference wise, to make sure, as you'll see, evil sorcerer Twilight here, her exposed bones. I definitely relied on reference photos of those figurines to make sure those looked right. That stylized bone anatomy. To continue that juxtaposition of her color palette and her scary skeletonness, her accessories that she has, they're rose gold in color. And I also gave her a scary evil magic amulet, because what's the fun of being a scary evil magic user without a scary evil magic amulet? None. I tell you, there's none. Maybe this is this universe's equivalent of the alicorn amulet, or a stone that has similar properties to the alicorn amulet. So, why is Twilight like this? In my mind, sometime after the fall of the Alicorn Society, but before the whole Sola and Luna becoming the rulers of Equestria, they were still kids, obviously. Sola was a teen, but Luna was still pretty young. The two of them get taken in by the powerful magic user Star Swirl the Bearded, and they're like his magic apprentices. And Star Swirl, he really comes to care about these two like they're his own kids. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's very wholesome. The issue is that Star Swirl has a daughter named Twilight. And Twilight is probably around Luna's age, and she wants nothing more than her father to acknowledge her, to pay attention to her, to love her, because he's always so absorbed in his magic studies that he doesn't really pay attention to Twilight. And Twilight would always try and bond with him by being good at magic herself, but she could never meet his standards. You know, Star Swirl's never mean, and his intention is not to be mean, but he sees his daughter try to do magic, and he sees her make a mistake, and his thought is always just to correct. Like, oh, you need to do this to be, you know, he forgets to say, I love you, I'm proud of you, you're doing great, because he just assumes that is known. He doesn't really say those words. He doesn't realize that Twilight needs to hear it. She doesn't feel it, you know, she needs to hear it. She's a little kid. Hopefully that makes sense. So you have these two other, like, kids come in, and they're crazy good at magic. Star Swirl, he's over the moon, like, these kids are awesome, this is awesome. And he quickly puts more and more time into their, like, magic studies, like, looking out for them. And Twilight, she feels jealous. It really stings. And things are really complicated because Sola and Luna, they treat Twilight as a sister. And the four of them, you know, they're a family. Even though there is this underlying tension there that's never really addressed. Now, this isn't the full motivation on why Twilight would eventually turn to evil. It's definitely on the back burner. I think a lot of her true motivation comes in sometime later when they're more like young adults. After all these attacks from, you know, your Discords, your Tyrex, your Grogars, the ponies of Equestria really come to fear like monsters, or, you know, quote unquote monsters, you know, non-pony entities. And Sola and Luna, you know, reminder, they're not ponies. Technically, they look like ponies, but they're the other. They're part of the other. So Twilight, she kind of gets caught up in this zeitgeist of fear and suspicion over non-pony entities. And just with her jealousy and kind of underlining mistrust of Sola and Luna, she kind of comes to the belief that, oh, them acting nice, this is just an act. And eventually they're gonna, like, take over Equestria. So she gets her hands on the evil corrupting amulet to gain the power to defeat them. And it corrupts her soul and mind. She starts sucking souls and doing evil stuff. And of course, Luna and Sola have to use the elements of harmony to banish her to the moon for 1,000 years. Yada, yada, yada. You know how this goes. I really wanted to push the idea that her whole body is just piloted by the magic from this curse amulet. It makes up her hair, it shoots out of her, you know, the broken part of her horn, it's in her, like, abdomen, like, area as well. Twilight, the unicorn from 1,000 years ago, is gone. What remains is the idea of Twilight, her desire for revenge, her desire to beat Sola and Luna, and the evil magic of this evil amulet. It's just piloting her stretched out, malformed corpse. And you can imagine, after returning to Equestria after 1,000 years, to see Sola and Luna ruling over Equestria when that was the one thing she thought that they were gonna do, and she was, you know, trying to stop them from doing. Like, oh, she hates it so much. It just further fuels her desire to destroy them and everything that they have built. So yeah, this is the part 2 of the My Little Pony AU Friendship is Gatskin completed. I hope you liked it. I don't know if I will make another one of these. If I do, it will certainly be a while from now. There's quite a few other video topics I want to make videos on. Like, I have my annual art fight recap that I'd like to get out sometime before August is over. Keep an eye out for that. And if you like ponies, consider checking out my webcomic, Liminal Lost and Found. One of the main characters for that is a pony. Well, she's a unicorn. Her name is Daisy. Chapter 1, by the time this video gets out, I think it'll be like pretty much fully uploaded to the internet. So that gives you a nice little, read right there. So thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that. It really does help a lot. Until next time, this is Gatsby from Gatskin, signing out.